Yes, Neil. That is what it sounds like when you are sitting next to me on the couch having a 9 p.m. snack of chips while I'm trying to watch television.
That is so unfair of you, my dear, because I have never, ever been that loud. That is like full mouth open, like diving in.
But you don't understand when somebody has a sensitivity to those kinds of noises, that's what it feels like. It literally hurts my body. So can you just, from now on, just sit on the other couch, or at the very least, just go in the other room and enjoy your snacks?
You know what? We've been together for how many years? It was never, ever an issue until like the last few years. So I think these ASMR videos on YouTube would be really good therapeutics for you.
I think not.
What are you guys doing?
The Landscapes and Pancakes podcast.
Wow.
There are a gajillion aspects to the green industry.
All right.
I just want this podcast to be real.
Interesting.
It's not always fun.
What?
But I think people go through this.
I know, none of it makes sense.
Seriously?
We are the ones designing and we are the ones building.
We respect each other.
Respect. Well done with our guest this week, buddy. You got his name right. Yes, yay for you.
Small victory.
Oh, gosh. You know, I was thinking about the first car that I bought. What was your first car?
Oh, my first car was the Ford Escort, the Pony line.
Pony.
Yes, it was called the Pony. And not only was it called the Pony, but I had the privilege of having pony decals on it.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
Yep,
you must
yep.
have been styling driving around Portsmouth in that thing.
Well, let's just say I was so embarrassed by it that I spent literally hours with a hairdryer blow drying the decals off and patiently peeling them off so that nobody would see it.
Wow. Well, mine was, believe it or not, a 1979 gray Toyota Celica.
Wow, that's old.
Yeah, it was an old car. It was $350, and it was right down the street from me. I had probably $400 saved, so I bought it, even though my mom said not to, because she tried to explain to me the fact that I had no money for the repairs and the car insurance and all these things, registration, right, that came along with it. But I couldn't resist it, so I bought it. It turns out that my mom was right. It was a horrible investment. It needed so much work, and yeah, I didn't have the money for it.
Now, was that the car that you had when you were working as a surveyor when you were a teenager?
No, because I was still scooping ice cream at that time, so at Gray's. So the next year, once I had everything in line, I started the survey assistant. But my first year wasn't really helping out the surveyor. It was literally putting in 3-foot granite bounds in a subdivision for the entire summer with a pick and a post hole diggers. That was my
sounds horrible. 3
solid months. But yeah, and then I graduated to a survey assistant, or I got to hold the other end of the receiver. And
So did you do that then when you were in college? So you went to
Yeah.
UMass Amherst
Yep.
for landscape architecture.
Mhm.
And so was that your summer job working for the
Yeah.
survey company?
Yep. That first year that I actually got for the survey for the engineering firm, that was both the jobs, the bounds and the surveying. I cleaned their offices once a week when I was in high school. I drove up to Providence, cleaned out the entire office, washed coffee cups, vacuumed and watered the plants. But yeah, when I went to school, I still continued to work for them. So I came home. In college, I would come home for the summers. I would come home for winter break even and survey, which was horrible outside in New England. Spring break, you name it. I was just, whenever I could just get over there and make some money, I would do it.
Yeah, but that experience alone, did you start to learn anything about your field while you were doing that? I mean, it sounds pretty brutal, honestly, but do you think you learned anything at that point?
I was in the dark for like the whole first summer of surveying.
Yeah.
And they tried to explain it to me, but the guy that I worked with was this super jacked Marine that was just like the most gung-ho person ever. I just literally tried to keep up with him. And the guy was like 20 years older than me. We would go through the woods. So like a developer would want to purchase a plot of land and subdivide it. So we would have to do this traverse. So we'd have to actually locate all the property lines. But it was literally just poison ivy and rose thorns and trees all in the way where we couldn't shoot a 400-foot line.
Right.
So we're in the woods with this
machete?
with this machete, with this Marine. The guy's just going to town and I'm just trying to keep up with him. And it was like 10, 12-hour days at like Monday through Friday, easy. That whole first few years is crazy.
That sounds pretty intense. But so then when you got out of school, is that at the point where you worked at the engineering firm?
Yeah.
Been in a couple different places, so I'm trying to remember the order of events.
Yeah, I was going to travel Europe. I was going to move out west. I had my sights set on Colorado and California. And
Really?
Yeah.
You really were going to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Thought you were going to do that?
I never thought I was going to stay around here. Ever.
You never told me that.
No, never. But I didn't have any money. Oh. So because I worked with them through school, they had a landscape architect on staff. And this is when the economy was booming. So that last month of school, they actually offered me a job. So I took it.
So were you figuring you could get your 2 years under that landscape architect to get your license?
Yep.
Was that the plan?
And I was eligible through some of the survey work I did and through the engineers to get, them sign off on that 2 years. So,
and how was that experience? Because that was in an engineering firm, but you were working with the landscape architect. And knowing you, how I know you, how your brain works, how was that experience for you?
It was odd because when I went to UMass, because I worked for them, I figured I'd go in for civil engineering. And I quickly learned that was just not my style. I hated it. I was so bored by it. So I switched to landscape architecture, thankfully, and I ended up, ironically, back in that same firm with a bunch of engineers. And they were all cool. It was just, I was younger than everybody, and everyone was married and settling down and buying houses, and I was just so far removed from that. But it was dry. I mean, I designed subdivisions. Literally, I would lay out house lots and foundations of septic systems and roadways, and I did a lot of DOT work, like Department of Transportation planting design and stuff. I mean, I learned a lot, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with the design I was doing because we were literally just, someone buys a plot of land and I they clear cut it and I max out how many house lots I can get on it. There was a conflict of interest there, to say the least.
Right. And so then after that experience, I know you worked for another engineer firm, but at some point too, you ended up working as a carpenter.
Yeah. So after 2 years after school, I got my time under that LA and that firm, and I just quit, gave him my 2 weeks, and I went to go work for a builder, building at that point, it was like pretty high end, like $5 million house. I was a laborer there because I wanted to get my hands on some things and learn some new tricks. And I always wanted to do carpentry. Started out as a laborer there. That was pretty cool. I literally was responsible for like organizing materials and getting materials. And I quickly would go through everything I had every day to the point where they would have no more work for me to do. So they would just start having me assist carpenters. And within a year, I was doing finish trim work inside the house on this $5 million home. It was super cool.
Did you think you might stick with it? Did you like it enough to think you might
stick with
that and forget about the landscape architecture path?
Yep. I was definitely far removed from anything. I mean, they were building a pool. I saw all the gunite being done. They were doing a bunch of bluestone work there. And I saw all the landscape going in from inside the house. And it was kind of interesting to see everybody building everything that they were doing outside. But I wasn't a part of that at all.
But then eventually you did make your way back to the world of landscape architecture, and you ended up in a landscape architect's office, which is actually where we met. But from there, because I know when I met you, I felt like you had a pretty good job at that point, but you still weren't satisfied. And then at some point in that experience, you decided to go out on your own. And I kind of always wondered what really prompted you to do that. Having not really built anything other than the carpentry, never really having built anything yourself. I mean, that seemed pretty gutsy.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that for everyone. I look back on what we did, and I definitely think having a mentor would have been beneficial at times. But yeah, I mean, the firm was good. It was a good experience, but it's not like it was the most creative LA firm, They did a lot. I was back into doing a lot of that DOT work. I mean, they got a lot of DOT work through the state, so it was highway plantings, things of that nature. A lot of things that you truly never, ever saw get get built. There was a lot of commercial work where it was like strip malls and parking lots and things like that. Again, not that stimulating. There wasn't a lot of creativity. And I definitely got pigeonholed into what I was good at. So I was just pumping out CAD drawings. I was reviewing plans a lot and just drawing details. So it was like real production, just production. And I didn't really see a way up in that company.
So again, I kind of wonder if you had been doing something a little bit more creative, if you had been in a different position, do you think you still would have gone out on your own to build? I'm just wondering if there's something inside you that's just driven you
probably
to be a builder.
Probably, yeah, because I have to use my hands. I'm not satisfied just designing and being in an office setting. I got to see things come to fruition and be a part of that building. So when I decided to go out on my own, I mean, at that point I was doing probably 50 hours a week on salary there. And coming into that spring, I actually convinced them to just work the 50 hours Monday through Thursday and take Fridays off. And surprisingly, they said yes. So what I did was because I had this wall that somebody hired me to build. It was just like a concrete block retaining wall. I was so desperate to build something. It was just a retaining wall with some steps and eventually a little planting. And that was like the first job I ever had on my own. So I hand dug this thing. It was like, I hand dug this thing with
you
my...
You must have been a lot younger.
I was, man. On Fridays, I'd go there, I'd dig it out like a crazy person, shovel everything into my Ford Ranger, and then I'd drive my Ford Ranger to a spot where I'd have to take the shovel and dig it all back off my truck.
Oh, God.
Little by little. It took me months, but they were cool with it because I knew their daughter and they just kind of like let me do it. And they were psyched because I probably got a really good deal.
So that block wall job you got that from Briggs, right?
Well, that was a friend. That was a friend's parents.
Oh,
but
okay.
Working at Briggs, I mean, I did the 2 12-hour shifts. I did 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. So I was doing the Monday through Thursday at the firm, 40 to 50 hours. I was building that block wall by myself on Fridays and then doing the 24 hours at Briggs on the weekends.
And why did you decide to work at Briggs? I mean, that's an insane amount of work.
Well, first of all, I love that place. I lived close by, and I would go there just about every week and like look at the house plants. They had these awesome greenhouses, and
They still do.
Yeah. Oh God, even bigger now. But I just loved it. And then I quickly realized working at the firm that I just did not know the plants the way I needed to know them. So for me, I'm not the kind of person to sit down and do the research. I just said, let me go get a job here and I'll learn the plants. And they threw me right in the nursery in sales. And I would just deal with people coming in. I mean, you've seen that place on the weekends, how many people come in to purchase plants. I had to learn those plants quick and I had to sell them. And oftentimes they'd come in with pictures of their house in a certain area and I'd have to kind of like, ask the right questions and help them pick out the right plants. So trial by fire. And honestly, working at Briggs was the best thing I ever did to this day. Yeah, because those first initial jobs, that's where it came from.
Right.
I think I showed the work ethic there, and Gary was not warm. Yeah, he wasn't warm to me at first, but I think he quickly
Must have been those dreadlocks.
Yeah, it was definitely. He saw I was dedicated. He saw I was working hard. So before you know it, they gave us, they do their own design and installation in-house, but they don't go outside of a certain, radius. They gave us those jobs. Those first, I think it was like the first 3 jobs we got were from there, and those jobs spread to other jobs in Smith. They were good jobs. So it was, I was just, man, the best thing I ever did.
Well, that's awesome. And I just thought would be really good for people to kind of hear how you got your start. Because we keep harping on this idea that none of this stuff comes quickly or easily. So, you don't just jump into running a business. Oh, wait a minute. No, you kind of did.
I kind of did, yeah. And I kind of convinced you to help me.
All right. Well, that's right. We're going to get into that later. But I think my bigger point is just that there was a process that you went through and very much a process of learning and experiencing before I think you really had the confidence to go out on your own. And I just think that's really important and kind of similar to today's guest. So today we have Matt Hiner of Hiner Outdoor Living with us, which we're really excited about.
Absolutely. AKA the artist.
AKA the artist.
The man.
All right. So let's get him in.
Let's do this.
So we are super excited today to have Matt Hiner of Hiner Outdoor Living with us. Matt is based in Colorado Springs, Colorado, correct?
That's right.
And what's it like there in Colorado?
Oh man, it's an outdoor paradise basically. We've got mountains, we've got skiing, there's mountain biking, hiking, anything outdoors you can do here, especially Colorado Springs. You have a mountain view of Pikes Peak anywhere.
Wow.
In town. It's pretty cool.
Are you originally from Colorado?
I was born in Sacramento, moved here to Colorado Springs when I was 8, and so I've been here ever since. So this is basically home.
Nice.
So.
I've driven through once. I spent the summer in college in a van.
Well, I'm laughing because I knew in my head, I'm like, how long is it going to take for Neil to tell Matt that he drove cross country in his Volkswagen van to Colorado?
It was an amazing summer, man. I was in Telluride. And I just drove.
So beautiful.
I drove out there with no plans and just about enough money to get out there. And a friend of mine assured me I could get a job, and I did. I ended up getting a dishwashing job. And even back then, it was like $15 an hour because it was such a wealthy town. So I was living large in a van. It was awesome.
Do you guys get a lot of gypsies like this one coming through?
They come through, but they don't stay. They go typically to those high-end ski towns like Telluride, Aspen, Vail, and whatnot. So,
well, high-end, you must have some high-end residences where you're at because your work is phenomenal, and that comes with a price tag. So, what's the market like out there?
It's pretty good. I would say Colorado, Denver, Colorado Springs as a whole is probably some of the fastest growing cities in the nation right now, just with the demand of, like we talked about, all the outdoor activities that are right here. And now we've got the big city amenities. And there's definitely a good market for landscaping since outdoor living is such a huge part of our lives out here.
That's awesome. And now how far do you travel for work? For installations?
I think I've traveled as far as an hour and a half to 2 hours away from our shop just to do jobs. One of my favorite projects that we've traveled for was downtown Denver at the Botanic Gardens.
Oh, nice.
It was just a way for me to, do something in a public sense to kind of in line with, your guys' mission, which is, to bring attention and more, show the artistry of what we can do. So that was really an opportunity for me to showcase, that part. So that's definitely something I'm really proud of.
That's awesome. All right. But we need to talk about your past a little bit. Okay. So we're going to delve into your past.
Sure.
This is a family podcast. Let's remember.
I'll keep it clean. All right. So the year is 2008. There's a major recession going on. Unemployment is rampant. Everybody is worried, and you decide to start your business. So what were you thinking?
I was on that long list of unemployment, actually. So I rewind. I think the story better off told if we rewind probably 2.5, 3 years from there. I was actually working for like a big corporate landscape company, Brickman. I'm sure you've heard of them.
Oh, we have them out this way.
Brightview. They merged with Valley Crest. Mm-hmm. So I was working for Brickman back in the day as a operations manager, doing work orders and whatnot. And it was snowing, and I was talking to one of our subcontractors that was doing the plowing for one of our properties. And he was like, "Hey, Matt, have you ever thought about owning your own business?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's always been something in the back of my mind. My grandfather owned his own business, and he did really well with that, but I never got to meet him. He passed right before I was born. But that kind of always had that thought in the back of my mind. That was something that I wanted to do. And so, when he said that piqued my interest. And so long story short, I quit my job at Brickman, went and worked for this gentleman with the understanding that I was going to be his exit strategy. I was going to work for him for a couple of years and he was going to sell me his business piece by piece. Well, I was newly married. I was probably married a year and a half at that time. And that's when '08 happened and the economy just absolutely tanked. So I went from having this salaried corporate job with benefits to working for this smaller mom and pop company. And long story short, I found myself unemployed 2 weeks before Christmas. And I was looking at my wife going, well, that didn't quite work out. So sorry, babe. But, my boss said, Matt, do what we all do. Just put yourself on unemployment and we'll get through the winter. And then spring comes, we start back up. Well, bills don't stop. I don't stop. I'm just constantly moving around. So I'm thinking, how am I going to actually make this work and, be a husband? How old was I? I was 24 at the time. So I was a little kid.
Wow.
And I got my first unemployment check attached to a letter saying, this is all you got. This is all you're going to get.
To put it bluntly,
basically forfeited all your unemployment benefits because you quit your last job. I was like, but wait, I quit my last job because I was chasing opportunity. You're going to penalize me for trying to live the American dream? Anyways, that's how it goes. So I took that $300. I had a logo design and some business cards printed. And it was December with no economy. And I said, all right, I'm in business.
Yeah, baby. Let's do this.
I'm going for it. I didn't even own shovels. I got hand-me-down shovels from my dad. I borrowed a trailer. I had a Jeep Cherokee that, wobbled when it got above 55 miles an hour. I put some magnets on the side. I ended up getting my first job from, Craigslist. That was still a thing. So I was advertising on Craigslist. I was finding all ways I could to just put my name out there for free. Other ways I was getting jobs was our supplier. They had a home and garden show booth, and they said, hey, if you come and help us install the booth, we'll let you stand in the booth and pass out business cards. I had nothing but time. I didn't have any money, so I thought that was a pretty good deal. So I donated my time for a week in exchange to stand there and pass out business cards and say, hey, I'm Matt, I'm the landscaper. And so, yeah, that's what I did. I just kind of didn't look back, really.
All right. So there's so many things that you just said that I want to dissect. The first is the fact that you took this chance when you were 24. And I'm just curious if you would have done that if you were older. You know what I mean? Like, are you the kind of person that is like, well, I'm just going to go for it and see what happens? Or do you think that was just being young and naive?
I think I'm a serial entrepreneur at heart. I've got multiple divisions in our company now. I've done other business avenues where I've had partners and I've sold off my side of things. I've stuck with Hiner Outdoor Living for years, but now we've got design build. We do just water features. I've got a retail store attached to our company. So I'm like, I tease sometimes. I'm the Disney of landscaping. Disney would do more movies so he could do more movies. I like to landscape so I could do more landscaping. So
that's cool. I like that.
Anything I can do to keep growing and pushing the envelope, I'm all about that.
But that's great. That means you're a risk taker too, which has its benefits, but also has its, inherent risks, right? So
it's a roller coaster ride for sure.
Now, the other thing that I thought was interesting too is you kind of talking about the flower show idea. And it's just funny because in our last podcast, we had been talking a little bit about marketing and how we had spent a lot of our marketing dollars and time into flower shows, and that we actually ended up stepping away from that because we didn't feel like we were getting out of it what we put in. But I just think it's really awesome that in a way, that's how you got your start. And you, just by kind of giving out business cards, you did get opportunity from that. So that's just kind of neat.
And I think you're still doing those shows to this day, are you not? I thought you did one this past winter.
The artist in me loves doing them. It's kind of like a passion project. It's like the one time of the year where I get to be the client and I get to do what I want to do.
Right.
And so I like to do them. It's not the smartest business decision anymore.
Not at all.
I'm a big numbers guy, and I look at the numbers and I track where my leads come from. And year after year, I still get some trickle. It's exciting. We email blast all of our past customers and we make it worthwhile. But as far as bringing in new business, I think there's there's much more efficient, better ways to do
Yeah,
that.
it seems very hit or miss. And I think, I don't know about your area, but the Boston market, and where we are, the flower shows, I mean, we had a big one, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago even. It's really shrunk in size.
It used to be huge.
Yeah.
Everybody used to go all out. That was the thing to do.
Yep.
Winter. It was your first taste of spring. They put trees in the greenhouses and put the super bloom feed on them, and they were all in bloom, and there's snow on the ground. It was exciting. It used to be fun. And now everything is so digital. You know, they're lucky to get 3 people to set up a booth, and the traffic is just a third, 25% of what it used to be.
Yep.
But it's still the same amount of work for us landscapers.
Right,
so
right.
it's tough to justify. I think, we had a team meeting after this last one, and I think we just did our last large booth. If we do it again, it'll be a 10 by 10 banner with a TV screen showing some before and afters.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. We've done the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. And so to just kind of backtrack a little bit to your beginnings, because it wasn't like you just woke up one day and said, I'm going to, make these business cards. You had a lot of experience going in, and it seems like you actually really started by working for your dad's company. Is that right? Your dad was a builder and you were on the landscaping crew?
Yeah. My dad was a builder. And so they did all their landscaping in house. And so it was me and one other guy, and summer job from the age of 15 every summer, even in between, even during school was happening all through high school. I got that hands-on experience. I learned how to drive a skid steer before I even knew how to drive a truck. So
Well, that's cool. So you started doing all the labor. So, much like we did. And I think that really taught me to really respect the effort that goes into the job every day. And as a manager of people, I feel like I'm able to evaluate where they're at physically, what task and what time during the year this job's taking a toll on them. So I think it makes, you could speak to it. Does it make you more of a compassionate business owner?
It makes us more relatable to everybody from entry-level jobs all the way on up.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now, do your guys and your crew, do they do everything from the pond builds to the masonry, where I see you building stone walls, and the flat work, the plantings, the drainage? Are they doing everything, or do you have crews that specialize in each task?
So we do almost everything. We sub out all of our concrete flat work. And if it's a large masonry job, I'll sub that out. If it's a small masonry job, we'll keep it in-house. And then other than that, the specialty trades like electric and gas, we're pretty much doing everything you see in our pictures all ourselves.
That's awesome. So, it takes a real special person to be able to build a pond, build a stone wall, build a patio, plant trees, do some drainage. Do you find it's hard to find team members that are well-rounded like that and, show up every day, passionate to really do the full scope, where they're not just doing one thing every day?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is definitely one of the hardest things to find, is that quote unquote super foreman is what I like to call them, just because they are very well versed. And, we're so small still of a company compared to some of those multi-million-dollar companies, that they do have to wear all those hats, and they can't just drive around in a truck and check on crews. My guys in charge of these jobs are also pushing the shovel and working and ordering the materials. I put a lot of responsibility on those guys. So
we're in the exact same boat. I can totally relate to that. So I found over the years, because we do so many different things on a job site, I think it's refreshing, because I love personally building stone walls, but I don't want to do it every single day throughout the whole season. But I found a lot of people through the interviewing process, and people that we've had, really like just doing one thing. Like, that's what they're comfortable with. Where I find it's refreshing to be able to plant trees personally.
Yeah, I have to bounce around. I'm just like you, Neil. Like, I love the craft, but then I'm bouncing around all the time. Like, I can't stay focused in one area. Otherwise I get bored. So I definitely like to jump around and anymore. I love to management by wandering around almost. So
I
Interesting.
like it.
I like that. Yeah.
Like it. That's a good term.
Gets it done. Works.
yeah.
Well, so I was curious though, how many crews do you have? More than one crew, or how many people do you employ?
I would say, yeah, we've got two main crews all throughout the year. But then in summertime, we will take a man off of each crew and probably have a third kind of work order runaround crew. It's really important for me to kind of the follow through after the job, the work orders, the plant replacements, hey, this settled, let's go fix that. So the customer service after the sale is really important to me. And I don't want to just tell people, hey, we'll be there when we're in the neighborhood. It's, I want to get that done and check that off within a few days of that call. So,
Oh, that's great.
So because I can imagine with the pond builds, it seems like there's probably a lot of finessing after the fact. Like when you say things settle, we've had the experience where the liner can settle in a certain area. Things aren't performing the way you expect them to. So is that real hands-on after the fact, getting back there?
Yeah, it's almost expected that, there's going to be an edge that just settles a little bit. And then if it settles, the water's going to go up and over the liner and you're going to have a leak and it's going to drain down. They're going to be calling you. And most of the time it's just a matter of going out there, moving a couple of rocks, finding where it's that low edge is, lifting up the liner, packing it and putting it back together. You're in and out in 10, 15 minutes. But,
nice.
But you got to have that team that knows what that is, knows how to find it.
Right.
Constantly pouring into them and investing in them. And if you don't have jobs, you're using that as an opportunity for training and cross training and switching guys from crews. So that way they can kind of learn different techniques. And,
nice.
I know my youngest brother works with me. And so I'll send him to a lot of the aquascape trainings as well. So he's got that firsthand experience of going to, the actual academies and learning from the best. So
And
it helps.
And how is that, having family involved? You know
It's
what they
good.
say about family and friends and business.
I'm harder on him than I am anybody else. That's for sure.
It's like Samantha with me.
I think what helps us too is we come from a family of 4 boys. And so I'm the oldest, he's the youngest. And so there's not a lot of that childhood, memories of me beating up on him. It was the brother that I would beat up on would then turn around and beat up on him. So he doesn't have any of those like grudges of, childhood memories like that. So I think that helps, that there's enough distance in between us. And I've really put him in charge of our water feature division and just letting him try to run with it. And he's loving it. He just loves the ecology, the science side of things.
Oh, yeah.
So he started his own Instagram account, the Polywog, so
cool.
Fits his personality perfectly. It's hilarious.
Oh, I love it.
What percentage of your business is the water features? Because it looks like it's a huge part of it.
It's a growing division. I would say it's probably 30% now.
Oh, wow.
As opposed to like design build being 65, and then retail and everything else is probably 5%. So.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the retail. Because I think I remember maybe about a year or so ago seeing you working on your retail space. Has that space been up about a year now or so?
I think we've been there 3 years now. Yeah.
Good job, Samantha.
Well researched, Samantha.
Check
Well
plus
done.
for you.
We're constantly working on it and trying to improve it. I'm always working on a shoestring budget. So, like everything is remodeled with old pallets from jobs, and we upcycled those to kind of make it look urban and hip. And
nice.
And so everything that I've done in there was just on a shoestring budget, but I'm trying to create that high-end crisp look. So
that must be really rewarding. So I imagine that's where you're designing. That's where you're bringing your clients to show them your designs. And then what are you selling out of there besides the design?
Yeah, so I would say the actual products that we're selling out of there are, the water feature, like water treatments. We've got koi fish there. We'll sell filtration replacement parts, but we've expanded into like Lynx barbecue grills, which is a high-end barbecue line. This off season, we just picked up a few lines of outdoor furniture and artificial turf. So we're really trying to build on anything outdoor living that kind of falls under the umbrella of, inspiring life outside, which is kind of our mission and our tag is kind of what I'm open to bringing in.
Well, again, too, I think, we're talking about risk and being an entrepreneur, but to open up a retail area. So I would imagine if you're anything like us, your trucks, equipment, leftover piles and piles of stone are
Guilty.
in one location.
Yeah.
And then I would expect that this is its own location. Is that correct?
Yeah, thankfully they're like on the same street and they're pretty connected. Like I could walk to where our yard space is, but it's close enough to where it still feels connected, but just far enough to where, clients can pull up to the retail store in the design center and feel like it's, presentable and retail worthy. So they're not pulling up into like a construction site.
That's great. That's amazing. But again, so I guess my point is, so you took another risk or another kind of stab at, okay, I'm going to build onto my business now. So now I'm going to jump into this.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you.
So at what point, well, I kind of have two questions. At what point did you feel comfortable about taking on that next step? And then I also want to know, I just don't want to forget to ask you, at what point in your business did you feel like you were going to make it? So those are kind of two different things, but I definitely want to go back to that idea because I want to get across the point that this stuff does not happen overnight at all.
Yes.
So talk about jumping into the retail space.
Sure.
First.
So jumping into retail was kind of something that I always thought would be fun. I was driving to our supplier. And so we've got this big supplier called CNC Sand and Stone, and they're known in town for having any stone and every stone left over all the way following back to like, they probably have piles left over from the 70s, that were
Wow.
just, like they've got everything. And then there was this old house that was kind of right in the middle of their operation. And I had no idea who owned it or where it came from, but I reached out to the owner of the supply yard and said, "Hey, what's the story of that house?" And he said, "Well, I've been trying to rent it to employees. I own it. I've been trying to rent it to employees. And why? What do you think?" And I said, I think it'd make a good office location maybe. And he's like, "Well, today's your lucky day. It's becoming available next month. You want to take a look at it?"
Wow.
I said, "Sure." And so anyways, the conversation rolled into, "Hey, have you ever thought about carrying water feature parts? Because we carry it, but I'm thinking about getting out of that." And I'm like,
oh,
no kidding.
Sure. So, it was kind of always on my thing. And so that kind of fell onto my lap. And so when we moved in there, I took the whole off season and we just really remodeled that into a kind of like a retail worthy space where the ideas just kept thinking about it. I'm like, all right, well, if I'm bringing people here, this can, let's turn this into like a meeting place so we could showcase the designs, and we put the TV on the walls. And then I ended up buying a golf cart so we could, show the designs and pick out the materials and then say, "Hey, let's jump on the golf cart and let's go through and we'll tag boulders," and
that
really
is
turn
awesome.
wow.
landscape design into like an experience,
Yeah.
as opposed to just like a store, just as opposed to like, I'm sure the song and dance where you're at the kitchen table and the kids are knocking the milk on your
Oh my
plans
gosh.
and mom is chasing and saying, "Turn down the TV," and and you're just trying to figure out how to keep things focused. Now they're coming into your space, they're kind of getting into the zone and you're getting them excited, and you're riding the golf cart. It's fun.
I'm
just trying to find a way. How can I make this fun? I want you to love your backyard when we're done.
Yeah, that is critical too. The point that you said that you're getting everybody in there. How many meetings have we had where the husband is there or the wife's late or the wife's, the husband's late and they're like, "Oh, he'll be here in another 15, 20 minutes. Then you have to represent it, or somebody for whatever reason isn't there. And it's like, you can't present these plans to one person in their team. You really have to have their undivided attention. So I can see that being huge.
Yeah. And talk about something happening that was just meant to be. I mean, I have this saying where I feel like having a successful business is 95% hard work and 5% luck. And it just seems like, when you get that lucky point, it can be a total game changer. And it just seems like everything just happened to work out for you. The timing just happened to work out just perfectly.
And then I always disagree with her because I don't like the luck part. Only in that we're married. This is a marital thing. But if he never asked the question, he may have never known about that structure, that house. So he made his own luck, if you will.
Yeah,
by
but it
putting
just
himself out there.
happened to be available.
I guess.
I believe the harder you work, the luckier you get.
I like
there.
that. I can buy that. Thanks for the counseling,
question, Samantha. When did I feel like I was actually going to make it?
Yeah.
So we've been in business 11 years. I'm going on my 12th season being in business for myself. I would say it was probably October last year. I felt like I'm going to be okay.
Nice. Now,
that is such an
Yes.
honest, refreshing answer. So thank you.
And that's what people need to hear that. So that is awesome.
I think in this world of Instagram, it's so easy to, I've got a baby face. I'm going to forever look like I'm 13 years old. So I think it's important for people to know that, just because we've got these nicer photos of jobs that we've done and that kind of stuff, I've been in this landscaping game for 20 years now.
Yeah.
I've been pushing wheelbarrows and learning the craft and self-teaching myself design and just being my worst critic and trying to find a way to make it better. And it's a seasonal business. So not only are you trying to learn a craft, but then, we're like farmers. You have 6-7 months to make all the bread. And then, the phone stops ringing, you go into survival mode, and then winter hits, or, this commercial job didn't plan out that was going to be 10% of our revenue at the very end of the season. And now I've got no cash flow, 11 employees and families that I'm responsible for. I would say the hardest year in business that I had was not this last year, but 2018, was the hardest year in business for me, because the cards just keep getting stacked higher, and things didn't quite work out for me. And I could have given up easily, but it's just not in my blood.
I'm so glad you came on this podcast, Matt, because I said it before, but this is what people need to hear, because I've gone through that moment. You had that moment in 2018. I've had these moments where it lasts a week of just doubt. Like, what am I doing? Why am I working so hard? What am I getting out of this? And it started to be almost an annual thing for me at a certain time of year, where I had to really kind of do some self-reflection and correct that. And I think I've gotten much better at that, but it was a learned process, man. I had to really look at myself to come to grips with it. But ultimately, and it sounds like this is what makes you go, is that passion that you have for this industry and what you're doing and the creativity behind it. That's what always keeps me rolling. Like, I could never quit because I love it so much. Is it just how you feel?
Oh, absolutely. I see a new thing or an idea, like following you guys and following other landscapers, especially on Instagram. It's been a huge source of inspiration and motivation. I'll see something that I like. I'm like, I have to put that into one of the jobs that I do. And, I don't know about you guys, but do you feel like you've got a certain design element that every time, it's like the kiss of death, you put it into a design because you want to build it so bad, but then, like, for whatever reason, you put that in the design and the deal just falls apart for this, that, or the other reason?
Matt, no, we have no idea what you're talking about. We've never done that.
I could tell just by the way you're smiling.
So she thinks I set the bar pretty high, I think, early on because of my crazy brain and the things I wanted to build. So she thinks I can do anything.
I love that question.
And only the last few years, I'm looking at her like, who the hell do you think I am? Like, I can't.
Whoa. I'm not the one that comes up with the crazy ideas.
Well, I guess I do too.
You come up with the crazy ideas before you even met the client.
Well, I do that. I'm not.
Or know what the project is.
Yes. Thankfully, I have her. I pre-design.
We have no idea what you're talking about. None.
But you like to challenge yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of challenge.
We're only in competition with ourselves. I really believe that.
I know. Well,
there's so much work out there for everybody, but, we can get as big or as small as we all want. There's enough work to go around.
Yeah, and I feel like pushing the envelope, I'm seeing that with your designs. I'm seeing it especially with the latest pond that you've done that amazing 3D rendering on, where the patio, it's the circular patio, is sunken below the pond level. And you have this detail that I think I've seen through your stories where you're able to get the edge of the patio right at water's edge, which I really respect and love what you're doing there. Just because, I mean, even going back 10, 15 years ago, ponds were getting really big here. There was a lot of rocks between your hardscaping and your pond's edge, and you've made it a much more intimate experience.
I'm trying to create a hybrid between pools and ponds.
Nice.
And I've been forced into that because I don't have a single pool contractor that I can subcontract pool construction. And since ponds are kind of one of our specialties, I figured, how can I create these intimate pool, like patio type edges? And that's kind of evolved. But funny you say that. That's the kiss of death. That I'm in the midst of redesigning that entire project just because, we designed it to her budget, but now the budget came back as 25% of what we originally spoke when we started the design. So I'm like, glad I have this in 3D because this is how I'm going to see it for the end of times now.
Yeah. But so, all right, this is really interesting because we're on a job right now, Matt, where we had a really awesome budget to work with initially. Everything was looking great.
No, they didn't give us a budget initially.
Well, let's say the final estimate with the whole kit and caboodle, everything they wanted, we presented it to them, and they were stoked at the meeting. They sent you messages that night. They were in love with it. The next day? They wanted to shave $100,000 off of this job. $200,000 off of this job.
Wow.
And to show you where the budget was initially. So we made modifications. It was almost to the point where I just thought we were going to lose it, like it wasn't worth it. But we did some things. We eliminated a lot of masonry, replaced it with bouldering and things of that nature. But then, so we went forward. Mm-hmm. And this has happened to us a couple times. I'm wondering if this happened to you. Once you start building, you think you have this solid number that they want to stay at, and it can get to be stressful. But then they start to add things in. Like, it's like all of a sudden they're adding things like $15,000 here, $6,000 here.
I know, when we could have put that towards things in the beginning, that would have made for kind of a better end
solution.
Product.
Has that happened to you? Even on like it's happened to us on some smaller scale stuff too.
I would say not to the level that you've experienced it, but I've definitely had things happen where we get started, we build the patio and the patio's done. And, and I'm just saying, man, have you ever thought of adding the sound of water back here? And they're like, yeah, we would love to add a pond. I'm like, well, this would be a great spot for it. And before you know it, I'm walking out with, deposit check to build a $10,000 pond.
Nice.
It just happened earlier this week. So yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Definitely no, but it wasn't even a thought on the process because they didn't think that they could, I asked them originally, like, no, we just want to start with this. We don't want to spend more than $20,000 back here. And, $35,000 later, we've got a pretty, kick-ass backyard.
So speaking of ponds, since we're talking about ponds, we did want to talk to you about the pond at your house a little bit. Because it seems like, well, what came first, the house or the pond vision? Because it seems like you have the exact perfect site to do what you did.
So my wife and I had the house built, but I had the idea of the lot in my head before we even found this thing. We went on the hunt for a lot like this, and we saw in the master plans of the community that they were building that there was going to be some cul-de-sac lots coming down the line. We didn't even know if it was going to be a few weeks or a few months or a few years. Well, so we actually went onto the county assessor's website, downloaded the plans for the entire neighborhood and said, yep, there's the cul-de-sac lot. And I wanted a hillside just so I could have waterfalls coming towards the house. We could look out the back windows and enjoy the sights and sounds of the waterfalls. And I'll sit there and watch those over the TV all the time in the wintertime.
I bet.
I love it. Yep.
And now, is it a swimming pond?
Yep. The kids will go swimming in it. It's really the first one we ever built. So
that's awesome.
So let's talk about that.
Because
we have a dream.
Yeah, we want one. Dream. We want one.
Well, we want to start building them too. I mean, I think the aesthetic of them falls right into our aesthetic too.
Yes.
But talk just a little bit about the difference between a swimming pond per se and a traditional pond, and maybe the difference in the builds, if there is any.
Yeah, as far as like the aesthetics of what you're going to see, there's not going to be a whole lot of difference. The main difference between a traditional pond and a swimmable pond is going to be the amount of filtration that you design and put into it. So you're going to need more pumps, a little bit more circulation. So mine has 3 pumps, one for each waterfall, and then one for like a jet system to help circulate and turn all the water over. And then I also have a really large intake bay, which kind of acts as like a skimming device. So it chokes down and then opens back up. And then it allows the water to pass through a bunch of series of rock and gravel where it's going to cleanse that rock, and that beneficial bacteria is going to eat it and keep that water healthy. To truly make it a swimmable pond too and keep it legal and that kind of stuff, you're going to want to trade out those submersible pumps for an external pump. Oh. So that's just a minor detail, okay. But so that is something that needs to be done to keep it compliant, because you don't want to mix swimming bodies with electricity and water. That's just kind of.
Oh yeah, I guess that would make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
that would be the only main reason for that. So
I'm glad we asked.
We asked too, because
let's go build a pond.
We have some extra pumps, and I think we could just throw them in and throw the kids in the water, and we'll be good.
To me, though, that is one of the more exciting things in this industry right now, are those natural swimming ponds. And
I think, I agree. Yep.
I find myself staring at your account, looking out your back window as well quite a bit. Because you've showed
We're
it.
Just hanging out with you all the time. You don't even know it.
You have these like awesome twilight shots, and you have some stories with the snow, and it's just like, man, that is gorgeous. I love it. It's just kinetic all the time. Much. It's an ecosystem in your backyard. It's fantastic.
Yeah. What I love about it is it's 100% chemical free. You know, the maintenance is slim to none the way that I have it designed. Just because that intake bay on the other end also acts as a kind of a protection area to where, you know, when the water drops, it's not going to drop all the way. It's going to, you know, I only have to fill up my pond probably once every 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
And I've got a small patch of grass that's smaller than the pond, and I put probably 7 times more water on that grass and way more maintenance into that grass.
Right.
So people look at that, and I get comments all the time like, yeah, I bet that's a pretty penny to maintain and a lot of maintenance. And I'm like, really, it's not. You know, I try and go for that naturalistic design approach to where you can just let the plants go a little wild, and it's not manicured. And the more it grows together and creates a canopy that chokes out the weeds, and the less maintenance you have to do.
Oh, yes. Preach, brother. Preach, please.
I know.
Preach. But so from a marketing standpoint, what is that pond done for you?
I don't think I would be here today if I didn't build that pond.
That is awesome.
So how old is it?
It's it's going to be on its 3rd season. So it's not even 3 years old.
Okay.
So I really just kind of, once again, you know, I didn't build that just to be selfish and use it. I built that to be a marketing vessel for me to kind of showcase like, well, nobody's going to just hire me and pay me $150,000 to build a pond of this scale unless they see it.
Right.
You know, you're not going to go buy a Ferrari for $150 if you don't get to test drive it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I've thought, like, what better opportunity than to build it, own it, live with it. I can't sell it any better than I can now, knowing exactly what goes into maintaining it, exactly what it takes to build it. I bought that experience by putting it in my own backyard, and now I get to take pictures. And like you said, I've got those twilight shots. You know, some of those are because I'm just hanging back there. I'm like, oh my gosh, babe, look at the sunset. And I grab the camera, and I'm like staging and throwing pillows up where it needs to be.
And to get the fire going, it's phenomenal, man. It is.
Yeah.
You did a
so I
awesome
wouldn't
job
have
of
that opportunity if it was at my client's house across town. So
no doubt
to grab some of those shots.
Now, are people asking you for these swimming ponds? Is it starting to become a trend, or is there still
starting to trickle in? You know, I think we still need a little bit of education on how much these things are going to cost, because they're not cheap. You know, I think for the smallest one to build all that infrastructure and everything, you're probably looking at a $85,000, $90,000 price tag for the smallest swim pond, and that's just the pond. Forget the hardscape and surrounding landscape. Right. So,
okay.
You know, and so, you know, I think I need to do a little bit better job of maybe educating the public on what these things cost, that it is in that realm of swimming pools. But I think it's going to take off.
All right. So let me ask you a question. If you're Neil and Samantha and you really want to build one in your own yard for all the exact same reasons,
Yes.
can Neil and Samantha do it in a phased approach? Or is it really one shot? It's got to just all be done at once.
It's a one shot type of thing. Yeah, you can't stop once you start. And that said, it took me 6 months to build my backyard just because we were doing it after work on the weekends, and we pushed through. And I mean, candidly, we built it with leaks, we built it and unbuilt it and had to find it and patch them. And I wanted to cry. I wanted to fill it in, and I wanted to just give up, even just building that backyard pond. But I had to figure it out. And I think during that process, I found out that my now lead foreman can carry the torch with these built better than I could myself ever.
Nice.
So now I can design them, and I can just say, hey, here's the planning, and say, great, now get off my job site. So, I think a lot of good things happened through that struggle.
Oh boy. I remember we built a pond, one of our bigger ponds, man. I had that moment too, where I just wanted to give up because it wasn't working out. It just wasn't working out. I thought I had leaks. I didn't. It was the way I sized everything, and it was demoralizing, but I learned so much through that process.
Yeah, we missed a concert with one of our favorite musicians because
epic
of that damn
concert
pond.
in New York.
Oh, no.
I know.
He was too upset. Like he was too unfocused. And I'm like, forget it. We'll just give the tickets away.
I just stayed there all weekend trying to figure out what was going on. Why couldn't get
the feeling.
Why couldn't get it to flow?
Yeah, I've sold what I'd probably build for $60,000. I sold for $20,000 back when I first started building these things because I wanted to build them. I was just drawn to the water, and
yeah,
I've paid for that education. So now that I feel like I've got it dialed in on what these things cost and what I can charge for these things, and now I've got the brand showing, and I think that backyard really helped me to kind of showcase that lifestyle that we're
I'm sure. And that's like another great lesson for people that are coming into the business, because I'm sure you get a lot of DMs and people asking you for advice. I've had a few people ask me about, how we got started, and you're talking about investing in yourself because you invested in that pond, right? The time and the money it took to build it. And you did some jobs. Yeah. And you did some jobs where you didn't get, you put probably 100% more into that job than you got reimbursed for because you wanted those first few portfolio pieces. I know it sucks to realize that at that point,
you cut yourself short.
Yeah.
But you got to prove your worth.
Yep.
You got to put yourself in the client's shoes for a second, and think, if I have $250,000 I want to spend into my backyard and put the best back there, I want to hire the best.
Yeah.
And how do you become the best? You gotta prove yourself as the best by showing that you've been there, done that. And if you haven't been there, done that, why are they going to want to hire you to do that best job that they've saved their entire lives to do if you don't have the proof that you're going to deliver?
Yeah. And all along the way, man, you're proving it to yourself. You're proving it to yourself.
You're not going to invest in you. You have to invest in yourself.
Yep.
All right.
Preaching, man. I
I
love
know,
this.
you
This is
guys
good.
are like going for it. That's great.
We got podcast number 2 coming down the road at some point.
Well, I would love to talk to you a little bit about what you see as the value of the 3D renderings, because so I'm going to be totally honest here. I have a little intrepidation, or that's not the right word. I don't trust some of the 3D renderings that I'm seeing, in that I feel like they're too perfect in a way. I feel like landscapes are very fluid and they change. They start off at a certain point before they become this lush backyard, and they never, I can tell you after 15 years of doing this, they never fill in the way you think they're going to fill in. They're always changing and evolving. And so I worry with some of the stuff I'm seeing that we're setting up expectations for clients that can't actually be met. And I know you do a lot of this, so I'm kind of wondering, how do you balance the reality of a landscape going in with these kind of perfect renderings?
Well, first off, you're absolutely right. I like to call it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's cutting edge on one end and really gets the client excited, but then, it's almost so realistic that they'll have that to refer back to and just say, hey, like we built a pond list where, where the basin was in the video, it was showing some water in the basin. But then when you build it, it basically just goes into the gravel and then disappears. Right. And the client called me out on it. And I was like, well, so I was just like, well, that is what it is. The computer's not perfect. It's, and I think it's all about setting expectations and just trying to explain to the client, and then not over design it in 3D as well, because we do have a little bit of control. But as an innovator at heart, I'm always pushing what we can do with some of that 3D technology. And it's hard to put all those plants in there because when these models, they all come with the flowers on it.
Right.
I've got like every plant in my 3D is in bloom.
Well, I have to say, I did see some of them. And I'm like, wait a minute.
You're like, no, that's spring, that's fall. That doesn't work. The computer certainly has its limitations, and I think it'll catch up.
Right.
But I think it still has that cool factor, and I think as long as you explain to the client, look, we're having fun. This is really going to show you. Please note, everything is in bloom right now. It's not going to be like that. I kind of have the disclaimer before I turn it on. I really think as a communication tool, people like you and I, we can look at those plans and we know exactly what it's going to look like because we're visionaries. We can see it in our minds. And sometimes people that don't look at plans every day, they don't get it. And you put it in that 3D. And I've done a lot of split testing, even with my Instagram, where I'll post the 2D pic and then I'll do the same angle in 3D and I'll just look at the likes and the engagement.
Right.
And 3D just kills it every single time.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
so,
yeah.
Because people just really see it, and it's funny too because I'll put like before and afters of what I see, and I've learned I need to start labeling my 3Ds as this is the design because people get mad on the internet. They're like,
really?
This, not the same house, or Photoshop is great. I'm like, relax, guys. This is the design presentation that I give to show you what we're gonna build.
Right.
And that being said, I'm 100% in agreement with you. The install is a fluid process. So, I know that I want to set the bar high and I still want to over deliver with my projects.
I mean, talk about detail, man. I go right to the stone. One of the last ones I saw that you did, I mean, you guys modeled the boulders exactly like the boulders that I'm seeing in your region. I
collaborated
impressed
with the best landscape 3D artist in the industry. And he literally modeled like 90% of the plants he modeled himself in that.
That is insane.
He even used like V-Ray and used like naturalistic waterfalls. But we sat there for 8 hours and placed all those boulders that he downloaded, which were 3D scanned rocks. So they were real rocks.
Incredible.
And pictures of the stone I wanted to use. And he made custom textures and wrapped all these rocks with the stone that I wanted that we were going to use on the project.
Because you nailed.
We gotta let our kid in.
Oh. All right, sorry.
Sorry, I know you probably see us. We keep like looking over. We're like,
it's all right.
Bound to happen.
No.
You knew exactly what it was. Yeah, I got kiddos.
What's up, buddy?
How old are your kids?
He wants to go on the computer. Go ahead.
Whatever you want. You can do
PBS.
whatever you want right now.
So,
ice cream and M&Ms. Here I come.
Bye. Love you. You're the best. 10, almost 10 and 8.
Correction. Almost 9.
Wait a minute.
And 7.
Oh yeah. Jeez.
Well, that's how old my kids are. I don't know how old your kids are.
My oldest will be 9 next month, and my youngest is 7 right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
I saw one of your stories. This was a couple weeks ago. I think your kids were sliding down the stairs in like sleeping bags or something.
Yeah.
I was like, that's something that would be going on when dad's home. Mama's not home.
Oh yeah.
That was wild.
I promote it. I'm the big kid of us all.
That's awesome.
Oh, now is your wife involved in the business at all?
She was for a very short time, and I don't think we work quite as well as you two do, but she stays at home now. So.
Well, that's nice.
Does she tolerate all your shenanigans and late hours?
She's got coping mechanisms. She's definitely learned how to have to have to deal with me and the roller coaster known as entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
So
is one of those coping mechanisms the Bloody Marys you posted the other day? Because those look
she
good.
doesn't like my bloodies, but she likes some of the other drinks. And
right.
She'll go to the wine or just kind of look at me with this look like, I don't want to hear it tonight.
Can we get that Bloody Mary recipe at some point?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. Nice.
Passed down family recipe.
Ooh, all right. I like it.
But then again, it's always served with a no guarantee because it's different every time. I always remember my dad as a kid making those bloodies and going, here you go, no guarantees. So
it's not going to be like the last time.
I think one of the last questions that I have for you is, at what point, because I feel like we're kind of latecomers to the whole social media thing, and I always kind of blame me for that because I'm a real creature of habit. I'm pretty sure I had like another life in the 1700s, and I kind of lived there.
And that's why she's intimidated by the 3D renderings as well for that same reason. So
what are these 3D renderings?
How the hell?
That's not real.
It's like the last thing she can add to her tasks during the day.
Okay. But so what I would kind of like to know is, at what point in your company, in your career, did you realize how helpful it could be for you? And I mean, is it really helpful? Do you get work out of your social media?
It started out as a place where I could geek out with some landscape stuff because I've got the business account, which I post a little bit too, but then I started the Artist account as a place where I could be a little bit more transparent. It could be a little less professional, a little bit less about business, maybe a little bit more about me as the entrepreneur and the artist, and geek out about certain things. And then it started to take off. I saw a couple landscape accounts out there that really had a huge following, and that kind of opened up my eyes. I'm like, I didn't even know that a landscape account could have 80,000 followers. Like that's mind blowing to me. And and so I reached out to that person. So that's Jack Kelly with Imagine. And so started chatting with him, and that kind of really opened my eyes to the opportunities of what this digital world does and is.
Well, that's awesome. I do love the transparency that I've seen on some of your stuff. I think at one point you were answering some questions through stories on Instagram, and somebody asked you what it was like to be a designer or something to those terms. And you said at one point that it can actually be lonely at times, which I really can relate to because you do spend as a designer, I mean, at least we do at times, a lot of times by ourselves.
In your head.
Focused.
Like in your own head.
Yeah, like it's not just at the table, it's when you're driving, it's when you're taking a shower, just hyper focused on what that next, problem is to solve. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally, 100%. Like, but my wife blames it on my phone, and then my phone will be plugged in the other room. She'll be like, Matt. I'm like, what? I'm just in my head, just thinking about a design or something. And I'm like, sorry, babe. See, I told you it's not the phone. It's just me.
It's the personality.
Like, still work on that though,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're right. Sorry. But try and be more present.
It seems to me like, I mean, the impression that I get from comments that are made through your page and stuff, it seems like you've really taken on a mentor persona with some younger people in the business and people that want to start their businesses. Is that true? And that must be rewarding, I would think.
Yeah, it's not something I ever really like put on my to-do list, but it's kind of like been a way that I could give back, and it feels good, It definitely feels good to kind of teach these kids some of the things. And I think it's super important to set the proper expectations of like, look, I'm one of the first things I always say, look, you're looking at 20 years of drive and hard work and overcoming failure. This did not happen overnight, and I'll answer a lot of the same questions and I'll turn it into a post. So that way I can almost just send them one of my posts so they can read
cool.
The deeper story is one way that I've kind of helped, do that. But I didn't have much of a mentor when I was starting out, and I think I wish I did.
It's great that you're really informing people how hard it is, but at the same time, through your example, they're able to see that this is possible and they can make it happen.
We definitely can't let you go without talking about the stone in your area. So let's talk stone.
Let's have it.
Because we've noticed that I mean, what you have in Colorado seems to be so different natively to what we have here. So a lot of the stone in your ponds, it's very square or rectangular. Here it's all round and it's small. Can you talk about the stone you have?
But what I want to add to that is you have a very deep appreciation of stone, which is super awesome to see, because from New England, sometimes I feel like we're so isolated here because it's just stone everywhere with our stone walls and our boulders. It's really refreshing to see other parts of the country, because some parts of the country really don't have stone to work with at all.
Yeah. And that's interesting to hear, because, Colorado is called colorful Colorado. I don't know if you know that or not, but colorful Colorado comes from all the earth that we have. So the stone I have in my pond is from a quarry 45 minutes from my house, or it's probably an hour and 15 minutes from my house down south. And that's more of like a hard sandstone, but we've got granite that ranges from colors from pink to black to white.
Oh, nice.
And then we've got round granite boulders as well. We've got angular granite. Some are speckled, some are gray. So we've got pink stone, red stone. I mean, it's crazy the amount of colors that we have in stone to choose from to build with.
That's cool. And what an asset to have native materials, where you start thinking about that, using that versus importing stones from other countries, the carbon footprint. There's huge advantages to working with your native materials. So that sounds like a playground to me, man. That sounds awesome.
One of my last questions is, we've all kind of made mistakes being business owners, in our builds. And I think we were wondering, what do you think any mistakes that you've made, you can kind of pass on what you've learned to other people? I did not word that the way.
What would you tell?
So you make mistakes all the time, Matt.
Yeah.
So
you screw everything up.
Okay, you know what? Here's the thing, right?
You're speaking truth, so.
I think we're trying to get too philosophical with the question. So let's just keep it really simple. What would you say to other people or young people coming up in this industry, either what to do or what not to do? Just kind of things that have really, that you've learned from, that you could pass on to someone else. That's an easier way to ask it.
I think just with anything, work the job you want, not the job you have. Don't be afraid to take responsibility and show interest that you want to learn the next state, the next level of something, and then just be proactive about that stuff. Things aren't going to be handed to you. You're going to have to show and prove to other people that you want it and that you're hungry for it. And that effort is going to be recognized and it's going to be rewarded. Honestly, too, the passion has to be in the journey and the process. It's not in the final product. It's not in that, because as soon as we're done with one project, we're on to the next, so it's, if you don't have struggle along the way, the reward isn't going to feel as good at the end. So, that's all part of looking back and going, man, look at what it took to get here. Like, this is awesome. If it were easy, anybody would do it. So.
Yeah, but once in a while, if it was easy, it would be nice.
That's true, right?
I mean, once every 5 years, if something could just kind of come to you, that would be, I'd be okay with that.
What I'll do for that is I'll just take on a really easy job, that's only takes a few days, get in and out, price it really well, make some money and go, W, got it. Yes. All right.
It's
feeling good. Let's go take on something that's not so smart again.
That's awesome, man. Awesome. Well, Matt, you have been pushing the envelope, and I've been inspired by you. I know you're inspiring a lot of other people. We're going to keep watching you from the East Coast on Instagram, man, and just keep plugging away, keep experimenting, because
thanks, guys. Really appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, we love watching the journey.
Matt, thank you again so much for joining us today. This was awesome. Now you can find Matt at _yardist on Instagram, or go to his website at HeinerLandscapes.com.
Thank you everyone for listening. Please be sure to follow us at Landscapes and Pancakes _podcast on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment when you listen to this podcast. And as always, check out our work and progress on magmadesigngroup.com and Magma Design Group on Instagram.